everybody, and welcome. I'm Kenzie Wilson, the moderation GTM lead at Stream. And for those of you who don't know, Stream is an API and SDK company, and we allow developers to build in-app chat, feeds, moderation, and video at speed. And today I'm joined by, Amadou, and he is a product engineer at Partiful. I'd love if you could just start off and tell us about Partiful a little bit.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you and see you. So Partiful is a platform that allows you to host events and very easily send it to your friends, collect RSVPs, and really get in person and in real life. So for the people who might not know Partiful, you can think of like Facebook events or paperless posts, and we're a more modern version of that.
Awesome. And so obviously, it's real time parties are happening all the time, especially here in New York. So, how has integrating real time communication strengthened your product led growth strategy?
Great question. So for us, I think the way we thought about messaging was that we felt like it's a very hard space, first of all. There's iMessage, there's Messenger, etc. And we didn't want to build another platform for people to just message when they can do it in other places. So as we thought about why we wanted to do messaging, we made sure that we were integrating a very Partifully experience and making sure that we were solving our core use cases, and that was our right to win in this particular thing. So for us, that looks like a host following up with guests and saying thank you for coming, or a guest sending context about not being able to make it to an event and adding a deeply personal touch to it as opposed to just pressing a button. So we didn't initially want to build out messaging, actually, fun fact, but when we saw that there were these very natural use cases, it made sense to build it and build a real utility for our users. And one quick example of that is basically for it to be a utility, people needed to be using Partiful more and more. So for us, when you look at users who have sent 0 messages with Stream versus users who have sent 1 or more messages, the retention rate is double. Which doesn't mean that messaging boosts the retention, but it means that the users that are messaging are the ones that are already finding a lot of value in Partiful, and this adds a lot to their experience. So for us, it's a real utility in our product strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's something we see with a lot of our customers. Giving them that ability to further connect within the app is super important. And especially, like you said, users who maybe have sent 0 messages versus those who are much more active. So, how has having real time messaging kind of influenced the design of your onboarding experience? So, when a user joins Partiful for the first time?
Yeah. Also a great question. So for us, actually, maybe this is counterintuitive. We do not push users who are onboarding to message. So as mentioned, Partiful is an app to get people in person, in the real world, interacting. So for us, that means it's centered around creating an event or attending an event. So new users that join Partiful actually can't message anyone. They have 0 people to message. But basically, as soon as you go to an event or you RSVP to an event, now you have users to be able to message and further that in real world connection that you're making. So that's kind of how we've thought about it, and basically just creating utility for users as opposed to keeping them online. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as a user myself, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like sometimes when I get on an app for the first time and there's too many options, I get a bit overwhelmed. So I think that's a really nice flow that you've built out there. And so, now that you've kind of had chat running for a little bit, how are you using the data conversation patterns, frequencies as like a signal to inform your product iteration?
So for Partiful, we take messaging and the contents of messaging very seriously, and we make sure that it's very private and no one is, reading your messages and all of that. And instead of looking at the content of the messages, we're looking more at like the patterns of what people are using messaging and what they're doing on the platform. So I mentioned some earlier, but basically we see there are like natural touch points where people are messaging. So if someone RSVPs can't go and then they click the messaging button and start a message with the host, we know that there's some sort of correlation there. Or after an event, they had never been to an event with this person before, and then now they're messaging them after the event. So we're looking at like the time that someone is messaging, and then like what they were doing, and that informs like how we actually improve the feature for our users. That includes like adding new entry points for people to be able to easily get those things, or like integrating it more into chat as well, so that those things come out of the box and feel very natural and organic for our users. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, you've been iterating for a little bit. You guys have been using Stream Chat for a while now. And so how have you experimented with notifications, chat-based nudges, encouraging conversations between attendees? What does that look like? And has it helped keep your users more active?
Yeah, so we have been using Stream now for close to a year, and it's been amazing. Would highly recommend for anyone. But basically, when we first started with building chat, we weren't really sure how users were going to use the chat experience. So we didn't really want to nudge them to use chat when we weren't sure what it would look like for them or why they would need to use it. But as we started seeing, how users use chat, that's, I think, the impetus to like actually build out things around it. So one good example would be recently we started experimenting with so let's say you hosted a party and you invited me. I RSVP'd that I can go, and then I want to go with a friend. So I can then send an invite to one of my friends. So we call it a guest inviting a guest. So now instead of the classic push notification that we would use, we send that through the messaging experience, so that it's like I'm sending my friend a message to come with me to this party, and then we can actually have a conversation around it. And that's been an experiment that has not changed our like RSVP metrics or people visiting event pages, but has boosted people actually communicating around an invite and making things more personal. So that's something that we learned like later in the journey, which that happens as you're building something. But now we know that for us, we should look at anything that users are already doing one-on-one, or people are doing in group interactions, and then see how we can naturally integrate that into our messaging experience. So it's definitely influenced how we think about building. And another shout out to Stream. Stream makes it really easy to customize the chat and make those experiences feel very unique to your platform. So that's made it better as well.
Thank you again. And are there any, other features that played a big role in Partiful's kind of chat journey? There's a ton of features that are available through Stream's API, but were there ones that you decided, maybe not to integrate at the beginning and then ended up doing it later that you saw great success with?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a product before messaging that influenced us to actually integrate with Stream. And we knew that Stream would allow us to build it really easily and get messaging off the ground. But we had a feature called Boops, which if anyone uses Particle, it's a way to send like a one emoji message. And you could pick any emoji, but this is before we actually had any messaging. So we saw that with that product that there was appetite for users wanting to interact. Like people would send a coffee emoji trying to indicate that they want coffee with that person, but had no real tool to actually say it in words. So definitely like that product, and then just like how people use Partiful and their in-world interactions, and then you know um, a lot of those interactions only exist on Partiful. Like they don't have their Instagram, they don't have their number. So messages at its core with Stream is um, like a natural extension of the utility we like to create for users, and like that's why we built it out in full. So it's definitely going to influence other products going forward, but yeah, we needed Stream to like achieve this goal that we set out for.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. I have been added to far too many group chats with all the random numbers I'm sure everyone has. So having an actual spot for the exact party, I know who everybody is very nice. And so, what are some key retention metrics or just metrics in general, KPIs, that you are using around the chat experience and how you're measuring success there?
Yeah. So I can't share specific metrics, but uh, one thing that one thing I mentioned already was that for the people that use messaging, their retention is double. But then I think one of the ways we think about it is like how can we make sure that messaging is a really good experience for any person that is using it. So um, we found, thanks to Menglin over there, that um, basically for users that receive a message back on stream, um, they are 2 to 3 times more likely to then send another message to other users. And basically, we like to think about that as they had a good experience because someone responded to them, like this feeler that they put out. So one thing that we're then thinking about is we have like a lot of friction because we only did it on app. And so now we're looking to build out messaging on web, which will be coming soon, hopefully. And our web user base is much larger. And we think that removing the friction of adding, downloading the app and then sending a message will just even further increase people having a good experience and getting responses. And then, that loop happens where people are sending more and more messages. So right now it's been good and very useful for the people that need it. And then we just want to make sure that it's even better for any given user. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Excited to see that once it's ready. And so, what have your biggest learnings been over the past year, 2 years? Not just with Stream Chat, but with Partiful as a whole.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I would say the biggest learning regarding like messaging in particular is that you should not build another vanilla chat for sure. It's boring and it doesn't retain users. But basically, most products that are even considering adding messaging have these natural loops that people already are engaged with, right? There are things that people are doing with one-on-one interactions in a group that really lend themselves well to a messaging experience. And, integrating messaging around what your product already does well is definitely the biggest learning and makes it for a better experience for the users for sure. So yeah, I think that would be the biggest lesson with messaging and working on messaging in particular. Yeah.
And I always like to end with, what's next? What's next in the app industry? What's next for Partiful? Kind of where you see, the next few years going.
Yeah. Good question. It's very broad, but very big question. But I think for first starting with messaging, I think we're definitely looking to do web messaging very soon, like maybe in the next week. Get that out to users and like continue using Stream because we know it will handle that scalability and the influx of users. I think one thing we're considering is integrating group chats. Right now, it's only one-on-one messaging, and there are very good use cases for people interacting in a group. Um, and even other things like integrating like photos being sent. Right now, it's text only. And we use Stream for like Stream's AI moderation and making sure that it's safe for our users. But from the messaging standpoint, I would say those things. But we definitely built messaging with future plans in mind and like how it will be useful to those other bigger, crazier products that we're working on. So stay tuned, download Partiful, and yeah, use messaging. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, excited to see all the new things that will come. But thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your insights. Would love to open it up if anybody has any questions, but that's all we have for everyone today.